I've been trying to film this video this whole day, but I was really struggling because it is quite a serious and sometimes upsetting topic about the problems facing the profession, but I feel like people should be more aware about it, and hopefully this can be a useful insight for yourself if you are part of the profession or considering joining the profession. Keith says hi. And hopefully together we can, as a profession, tackle these issues and make the job a better one for everybody to thrive in. And if you're not familiar with Dr. Melanie Bowden's TED Talk,
as I mentioned before, I am a veterinarian, and it's been my experience that most people don't personally know a veterinarian in their own life.
She basically delivers a very coherent explanation about compassion fatigue, burnout, things that are happening in the profession that I watched when I was a student, and I was really shocked because I could not believe that veterinarians are 4 times more likely to end their own life than the general public. So that was very new news to me. And I guess instead of me repeating the information that is available, I wanted to just talk about a bit of my experience as a new graduate vet and how you can find better ways to take care of your mental health and also not make the mistakes that I did. Firstly, just to give a bit of a background context on how many hours we work and what kind of work-life balance you can expect as a vet. Obviously, everyone's rota is different, and in my practice, where we have a hospital and some branch clinics, I work 4 to 5 days a week, and essentially I have 2 to 3 days of consults where you are facing clients, and then on ops, when we do surgeries, you usually operate from 8:30 to 4:30 and have consultations in the evenings. So we also have a 1-hour lunch break that is in the rota, but obviously some days are more busy than others, so I would say maybe 50 to 60% of the time we do get a 1-hour lunch break. When I first started, I was a little bit slow with writing up notes and I would run behind in consults. I still do when there's complex cases, but sometimes I eat into my lunchtime and do the phone calls and lab reports so that I don't have to leave work too late. And also, besides doing consults and surgeries, you're involved in writing up the prescriptions, preparing the medications for the patient, and also answering any phone calls if people have questions about their pets, things like that. So it's not just the main job, but also little things around the job that you have to carry out in your day. And it can be quite intense. So I guess the first thing where my mental health was kind of negatively affected was because I wasn't finishing on time. The first few months I would stay late and finish my notes and finish any lab cytology slides that I had to look at. And of course, obviously, some consultations can become more complicated than you thought they would be. So for example, a patient that could have just come in for like a sore leg or something actually has another problem that we needed to investigate, so we end up admitting the patient to the hospital, and that takes up a lot of time so that the other appointments in the day get pushed back and you finish essentially at like 7 o'clock. It doesn't always happen, but when it does, it kind of makes you feel very tired by the end of the day. So far I haven't been very good in organizing things after work, basically just because of my organization and also because I get tired at the end of the day. But I'm trying to get better at that, so trying to meet up with my colleagues after work to go for a walk in the park with their dogs. That was nice. And also, you know, just chilling with my cat and unwinding while I do Zoom calls with my friends. The other things that have negatively affected my mental health is stress at work. So I would say at work it can be stressful, and I divide it into sort of like the case that can cause stress and animals that can cause stress. So in the cases that can cause stress, I would say that when the case becomes very complicated and I feel really out of depth, or the client is very particular about certain things and I can feel a bit like, oh, I'm not sure what I'm doing, this can make me feel very overwhelmed. And what I've learned to do is always consult with your colleagues who are more experienced. And also I would look up things on my university notes. Clinicians Brief is a really good website. The BSAVA Companion, journals. I would usually just tell the client like, look, we're not entirely sure what's going on, but what we'll do is we will start this diagnostic test. I'll have a chat with my colleagues. I could even email the referrals centers because sometimes they're very helpful to give advice. At the end of the day, I started to stress less about it because I know that I don't have to know everything, and all I need to know is where to look it up or what's the next step to find or reach the diagnosis. And obviously the main priority in every case is to provide pain relief and also make the animal more comfortable while you're reaching your diagnosis. So because now I know of that plan, I'm less stressed. I still get stressed, but I would say it's more controlled stress, if that makes sense. The other thing about working as a vet that's stressful is when I face aggressive patients. So as you can see here, this is not an aggressive patient because he is sleeping so soundly in the corner. So for a period of time, I was really stressed about dealing with big dogs, particularly aggressive dogs that either feel threatened when they're in the consult room or because in the past they had some bad experiences at the vets, or even animals that are not well socialized because of the pandemic. That would stress me out a lot. And especially when they come in for like a simple booster vaccination and the owner thinks like, okay, we're just gonna get the vaccination, in, out, done. But no, with aggressive patients, things take a little bit more time. And for a few months, I was very stressed to deal with German Shepherds and dogs of that sort of breed. I would get very nervous, and the thing with dogs is that they will suss you out if they feel threatened, or if you're nervous, they can pick that up, they can pick up your fear. So I really struggled. Because once you see the dog, you start panicking, and then you go grab the muzzle, and then you panic even more, and then the dog's also worked up, and you're worked up, and it's just not great for anybody. So what I have learned from that situation is that in terms of animals that are really, really aggressive and they need to have their bloods taken, for example, or a visit and checkup, I would prescribe medication that can sort of reduce their anxiety a little bit, sedation, that we can try to handle them under the medication. But for dogs where we don't have to do sort of like aggressive interventions, but we're just trying to build their confidence when they're coming into the clinic, I would recommend our behavior sessions at the clinic, or to ask them to work with a canine behaviorist to build their confidence around other people. Other things I've done is watched the behavior webinars by Sarah Heath, and basically what I learned is the sink model, which is very interesting. In any animal there is like a sink, and there is a cool tap and a hot tap. There's inflow and outflow. Depending on the dog, some dogs can have more hot water than cold, which means maybe they're a bit more anxious and they're likely to reach threshold, which is when they would show sort of reactive behaviors. And some dogs are less anxious and nervous, so they have more cold water. And I've also learned to pick up a little bit more on cues. If the dog starts, licking lips, showing their teeth, yawning, or trying to hide, then I would, adopt a more slower approach and trying to entice them with treats. I start every consult with a treat if I can, if the dog can have treats. Talk to the owners, don't rush into the exam. Little things like that I found help. And also, if there's any doubt that the animal may snap, I would prioritize the owner to muzzle the dog, just for patient safety, the owner's safety, and our safety. So yeah, I've learned a lot about that, and have had some near misses where I was almost bitten by patients, or actually I've been bitten by patients, but thankfully no trips to the hospital yet, so that's good. So the other thing that really affected me when I started my job is when dealing with euthanasia. So euthanasia is when we put an animal to sleep because there is no treatment for the animal's condition, or the animal is clearly suffering and deteriorating and does not have a good quality of life. It can be very, very, very upsetting and very emotional. The owner is saying goodbye to their pet, and you are there to reassure them and make sure that the pet passes away peacefully. It can be very stressful and also very upsetting when you witness the whole thing and you have to sort of process it. And I think I struggled a lot because initially I was it just hits you like a shock when you've done your first euthanasia. And then after that euthanasia, you may have another appointment waiting for you. So you wouldn't really have time to sit down and process things, and you just have to go into your next consult. Obviously, with how they plan the diary, they try not to put euthanasias in between consults. They try to plan it properly, but there are cases where the owner brought the pet in without thinking that they were going to put it to sleep, and then during the examination you found out that the dog has a terminal illness or is clearly suffering and has had a very poor quality of life. And in those 15 minutes you would have to advise the owner the best you can, and then end up having to put the animal to sleep, and then takes up the time. And then you end up rushing the rest of your consults to the end of the day, and it just can get very intense. So in my first few months, I kind of struggled quite a bit because I would come home and then still think about the patient, or I would come home. So I lived above the practice a few months ago, and I would, use the computer and then finish my notes and then check in on the patients that I was looking after. And then I remember one night I clicked into this patient that I was, just being a bit concerned, checking in on them. And I found out that they had been euthanized, and I started crying and burst into tears, and I was really shocked because I did not imagine myself to have that sort of effect. But yeah, you get really invested in your clients and your cases and your patients because you care about them so much, to a point where when you go home you kind of still think about them and think about other ways that you can try and help them. But then I guess it's just knowing that you can't save every patient, and you're just doing the best you can, and the main thing is to relieve their suffering. So coping strategies for that. One of the good things is when I started work, I was lucky enough to have a therapist as well. And during those counseling sessions, we would talk about what happened and talk about how we deal with sadness and deal with, stress and things. And I found that a method that works for me is journaling, to process all my thoughts and to stop them, thoughts spiraling and running through my head while I'm trying to go to sleep. I would write down in physical journal and then close the book to sort of symbolically say, okay, I've processed what happened in that day, or I've processed that really stressful, traumatic event, and now I'm closing it. I'm closing that chapter, put it in my cupboard, close the door to the cupboard, and then that's it. I'm not gonna think about it. I've processed it, and now I'm gonna get a restful night's sleep. And I guess with the cases that you get in the future, you just have to tell yourself that you are doing your best for the patient and you are doing your best every day. So don't be too hard on yourself. Yeah, the other thing I learned is having self-compassion. My therapist pointed out that when I have all these negative stresses and negative mental health experiences, I was very unkind to myself. I think for people who enter the veterinary profession, a lot of them would start as students who study really, really hard and always push themselves to get the good grades, sort of like a perfectionist when they are doing anything. And that can have a harmful effect on yourself long term. And with this kind of trait is what got you into vet school in the first place, because vet school is competitive. You have to go through entrance exams, interviews, application process. It takes a certain person with, lots of hard work, determination, drive to get there. And I guess once you're in vet school, some vet schools are quite competitive, some aren't. But then when you finish vet school, you still have that kind of hardworking, determination sort of mindset to push yourself to get better, to save your patients. And when you fail or when you make a mistake, you are unnecessarily harsh on yourself. Why can't I get it right the first time? Even though no one gets it right the first time, we all learn through mistakes. So one of my clinical directors said to me, you know, when you start this profession, you will make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, and the important thing is to talk about it and learn from it so that you don't have it bottled up inside you, because that can be very harmful long term. So I will try to take that advice and be kinder to myself and talk about my mistakes more openly, which is why this video is also part of the reason why I want to do it. And there'll be another video where I will share with you my mistakes as a new grad and what not to do. Okay, so now on to the positives. I felt like earlier my talk about euthanasia was I was very sad, so I decided to get some ice cream. And Keith is here. Hello, you can't have any of this, sorry. Okay, positive. So I would say a huge positive for me when you start as a vet is that you get to make a meaningful contribution to society. As cheesy as that sounds, it's just really good to know that you've helped someone get their pet better, or, you know, get their pet more comfortable when it's suffering from like a bad leg. Hello? You okay? What's up? Yeah, suffering from a bad leg or bad tooth, things like that. And it just feels great that you're doing something good, and also building the client relationships. I've had one or two clients interactions where it didn't go so well, but I would say most of the time clients are very grateful that you help them, that you are caring for their pets, and that you're concerned for them. So that's a positive for me as well. Besides the main positive, which is, you know, as a vet you save animals and you help humans and all that positive awesome stuff, I found, oh dear, do not eat the ice cream. Ice cream will be put here. I found that I really enjoyed my days at the clinic when I'm learning new skills. A few months ago I learned how to do a rabbit spay and a rabbit castration, and at the end of the day, when I've done a couple of it and I became more confident to do it without anyone scrubbing in, I was like, oh my god, I progressed. It's great, you're learning new skills. When you are able to do diagnostic tests and work up a case and reach a diagnosis, that's excellent. I've leveled up in my ability in becoming a vet. So I think for me, the self-improvement, learning, progressing, and knowing that you're getting better, that's a huge positive for my mental health, because I feel super fulfilled and energized, and I love it, and I come home feeling ecstatic, so I love that. The other things that being a vet that has positively affected my mental health is working with a supportive team. When I first started work, my mentors were there to make sure that I felt supported, and that really built my confidence. Learning how to delegate tasks when you're working in a branch, for example, that has definitely positively affected my mental health. Also because when my coworkers are really funny, make jokes and stuff, and we survive the day, even though the day is very crazy, it can just be such a nice feeling. And lastly, after starting a job and earning some income, having that financial security of a vet job, although we've established it's not lots and lots of money, it's enough to sort of have a nice takeout meal in a week, or go on a nice day trip with friends. Yeah, so that has definitely positively affected my mental health as well. So I guess we've just been through the positives and the negatives of how being a vet has affected my mental health. And I hope that some of the tips are useful for you. If you are struggling, please know that you are not alone. There are loads of resources and helplines that you can reach out to, that I will definitely just link them all over my video and description as well. Tips to help you improve your mental well-being, how to identify when you are burning out or when you have compassion fatigue, things like that. All useful stuff. And I guess I don't have the answer of how to solve all these issues in the veterinary profession, but I hope collectively, if we spread more awareness on this, and where we normalize discussions about mental health and our failures and our mistakes, which I will try to do, we can make the profession a better place. If you like this video, be sure to check out the video where I talk a bit about my new grad experience, and also the video where I share my mistakes I made as a new graduate vet. Take care, stay safe now, and have a lovely day. Keep safe. Bye bye everybody.